During World War II, England desperately needed a replacement for the Hawker Hurricane fighter to maintain aerial superiority over the English Channel. Without such an advantage, it would be impossible to set the stage for D-Day and the eventual liberation of France. Although the aircraft was fitted with one of the mightiest engines of its time, the initial results were highly disappointing. Then, as it made it to the battlefront to conduct its first operations, it further disheartened the Allied leaders. The aircraft turned out to be very difficult and risky to operate, displaying a much higher probability of being taken down or even bursting into flames on its own than other fighters. Soon, Allied pilots started to dread the prospect of flying it, going as far as considering it a suicide mission. But just as Germany deployed its fastest and most powerful fighter to date, the Focke-Wulf FW-190, and the prospects of maintaining air superiority over the English Channel appeared bleaker by the minute, the Hawker Typhoon and its daring pilots stepped up to meet the threat eye to eye. Then, almost by mistake, the faulty and hazardous Typhoon was given a different role, completely changing the course of the war. The need for the Typhoon. World War II was a massive, urgent, and unyielding affair from start to finish. Often, new technologies had to be developed before the old ones had a chance to be tested in the field. Only the most aggressive and relentless developing cycles could allow the belligerent nations not to be completely outclassed by their opponents. The military aviation industry was no different. In 1938, even before the Hawker Hurricane was deployed, the Royal Air Force, or RAF, started to outline a more powerful replacement. Speed was the primary demand, and the British military tacticians knew they would need a fighter capable of surpassing 500 miles per hour to face the aircraft being developed by Germany and other nations. With this goal in mind, legendary British aeronautical engineer Sidney Cam took the basic design from the Hurricane and modified it to house an enormous Napier Sabre 24-cylinder engine. The engine proved groundbreaking, and to this day, it's considered the most potent aero engine of its kind ever to be mass-produced. With an unprecedented output of over 2,500 horsepower, it was at least twice as powerful as any other fighter engine of its time. The secret to its potency was that the massive contraption was actually two engines joined together vertically in a compact and efficient array of raw power. However, in conjunction with its great engine, the Hawker Typhoon also showcased the most giant propeller of any fighter in the world, with blades spanning over 14 feet in diameter. The aircraft was initially designed to fulfill the role of a mid-altitude fighter. Hence, the prototype was fitted with 12 .303-inch Browning machine guns, each holding 500 rounds of ammunition. On paper, the Typhoon was meant to be the ultimate dogfighter of World War II, but as with several aircraft at the time, all its technical advantages rapidly became outshined by its numerous faults and shortcomings once it made it to the testing field. A wing disaster. The Typhoon began undergoing its first test flights in 1940. Allied pilots were overly excited to try a fighter with such a unique engine, and the first impressions revealed that the aircraft's speed was indeed unparalleled. Nevertheless, the unhinged power it held soon revealed severe structural problems. During one of its first flights, a severe design weakness in the tail area almost broke the plane in two while in midair. Chief Test Pilot Philip Lucas performed a series of miraculous maneuvers to land the fighter safely, and he was awarded the George Medal for his dexterity and bravery in bringing the aircraft back in one piece. To fix the perilous structural oversights, the plane's tail was urgently redesigned. Then, a year later, a new iteration of the aircraft was deployed to air bases all across the English coast to conduct their initial war operations. The 56th RAF Squadron was the first team to make the switch from the old Hurricanes to Typhoons. They were also the first to discover that the groundbreaking engine inside the aircraft had one colossal drawback. It would burst out in flames when fired up. Two explosive cartridges, similar to those found on a shotgun, had to be detonated to get the massive pistons moving. The timing was crucial, and fuel had to be primed precisely to start the engine without incidents. To make matters worse, the engine was susceptible to changes in temperature, which meant the machine would simply fail to start if the conditions weren't just right. Regrettably, pilots were used to the simple electric starting system found in most fighters of the time, where all they had to do was push a button. The complexity of the whole process caused frequent overpriming, resulting in fuel leaking out from the engine, causing an abrupt gust of flames every other time a pilot attempted to start the aircraft. Many pilots suffered severe injuries when the Typhoons caught fire. The fighter soon became dreaded by pilots, who considered starting the engine as dangerous as flying into combat. Carrying fire extinguishers every time a Typhoon was to take off would soon become a common practice. On his first encounter with one of these fighters, Officer Pilot Derek Lovell downplayed the risks and found the whole Typhoon firing up ritual absurd. He even commented about the fire extinguishers, quote, "They got fire extinguishers like they're going out of fashion." However, Lovell found himself engulfed by fire a few minutes later. The fire problem eventually became less of a concern during the following months, yet operating a Typhoon continued to be considered a life-threatening endeavor, as its structural issues were still a source of concern for the aviators. Like many of his companions, Roy Crane was a young pilot eager to fly the new Typhoon, but as he arrived fresh on the airbase, he looked up to see a fighter whirling erratically. The aircraft continued to spin out of control until it hit the airfield and blew up in a great fireball, taking the pilot's life with it. As before, the crash was caused by the tail of the Typhoon breaking off. And as unlikely as it seems, spontaneous combustions and the airframe breaking in half were not the only problems the pilots faced when adjusting to the new Typhoons. Reports started to surface of pilots asphyxiating in midair before plunging to their demise. The cause would turn out to be carbon monoxide poisoning. Fumes from the engine were leaking into the cockpit, suffocating some pilots and causing them to crash. And to add to the list of issues, the cockpits presented another problem. They were fitted with hinged doors, similar to those of a civilian car, which made the aircraft look unique and futuristic. Still, they made emergency escapes from within the fighter excessively cumbersome. The RAF struggled immensely to find willing and capable pilots eager to fly the Hawker Typhoons, and more, the aircraft started to feel like a waste of time and resources. Due to all of its issues, it could not conduct the mid-altitude operations it was designed for, and the enormous risks to pilots' lives outweighed the benefits the fast engine brought to the table. However, just as the RAF considered halting the production of the Typhoon and even recalling the units in active service, the aircraft would prove to be the only fighter capable of facing a swift new Nazi threat. The only fighter fast enough. In 1943, a new player would enter the game and change the landscape. The novel German airplane came to be known as the Focke-Wulf FW-190 and quickly provided the Luftwaffe an outstanding advantage over its Allied counterparts. The Nazi aircraft had begun service as early as 1941, when it completely outclassed the British Spitfire Mark V. As the RAF was finding it increasingly difficult to deal with the superior German fighter, they attempted using the Typhoon against it, but its many flaws turned it into a failed effort. Nevertheless, by 1943, the Luftwaffe deployed its FW-190 into the English Channel, this time as a strike aircraft. The fighter was so fast and agile that it could penetrate defenses, obliterate its ground targets, and escape while its Allied counterparts trailed miles behind. Desperate, the British commanders commissioned the Typhoon squadrons to try to take on the Wolf once again and hoped the groundbreaking speed of their fighter would be able to catch the Nazi 190s before they cleared the channel. By this time, the Typhoons had undergone several modifications to lessen the impact of their many shortcomings. The car door cockpits had been replaced with more conventional teardrop canopies, and the pilots were equipped with oxygen masks to avoid suffocation. Furthermore, their pilots had become highly experienced in operating the fighters, and Typhoon piloting was reserved for the cream of the crop. The results were overwhelming, as the extraordinarily fast Typhoons would intercept the fleeing Wolfs midway through the channel. Soon, strike missions performed by the German aircraft became obsolete, as the Typhoons quickly sent them hurling down into the waters of the English Channel. Squadrons of Typhoons were strategically located all along Britain's southern coast, and this new defensive operation suddenly gave the British complete air superiority over the British Channel, as the incredible speed of the Typhoon couldn't be matched by the Axis powers. One pilot would recall that accelerating a Typhoon provided such a rush of force that, quote, "It was like being hit in the back with a sledgehammer when you opened the throttle." Changing the fate of the world. The Typhoon's defensive role would not be the only one at which it would excel. 23-year-old squadron leader Dennis Crowley Milling was the first to discover the plane's unique capabilities as a fighter bomber. In preparation for D-Day, Typhoon squadrons were armed with bombs and switched their machine guns for powerful RP-3 rocket missiles, making them the first aircraft in the world to use this technology effectively. The tactics as part of Operation Overlord consisted of crossing the channel while flying at minimum altitude. The aircraft would raise once inland to then dive in over their targets. Their driving speed and maneuverability gave them a strike precision unattainable by any bomber of the time. During the operations preceding D-Day, Typhoon squadrons eliminated scores of German radar stations, rendering many of their ground-to-air cannons useless. They also crippled supply lines and transportation systems across northern France, severely limiting Germany's ability to reinforce the beachheads once the invasion began. Almost by mistake, the faulty and hazardous Typhoon had become the first fighter bomber in the world, and by the end of the war, it became one of the most successful aircraft in the entire conflict. Many historians are confident that if it wasn't for the contributions made by Typhoon squadrons, the entire war might have taken a very different turn. Thank you for watching our videos. Don't miss any of our exciting history-inspired content by subscribing to our channels and hitting the notification bell. And let us know your thoughts on the legendary Hawker Typhoon in the comments below.